Well, hello and welcome to another Do It All Yourself video. Today is going to be a car repair video. That's actually a very common problem. Today we're going to be replacing a car battery on a 2015 Toyota Sienna. I'm going to go over some very basic, simple concepts that apply to all combustion engine vehicles and their car batteries. And then we're going to get to some of the specifics of replacing a car battery on a 2015 Toyota Sienna. Let's get to it. So real brief, quick overview, 2015 Toyota Sienna. Here's what's under the hood. I got my engine, but today our focus is going to be on the battery. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the cover of the positive terminal of the battery. As you can see, it's got a bit of corrosion. This powdery, white, greenish stuff is corrosion. In my case, this battery is almost 8 years old. So it has definitely run its course. I definitely got my money's worth out of this battery. So the reason for the corrosion here is age. Corrosion can happen for a couple of reasons. Age is one of them, but something else that can happen that can cause corrosion. If the sulfuric acid in the battery leaks, it could react with some of the metal electrodes right here and cause this powdery stuff. That's one reason for corrosion. Another reason is a natural side effect of the chemical reactions inside the battery is the production of hydrogen. Hydrogen reacts with the metal and produces this as well. So a couple of different reasons why you could have corrosion on a car battery. But in my case, I've definitely exhausted the usage time out of this battery. So it's time to get a replacement. So all car batteries, most car batteries are 12 volts, but they have the ability to drive a large amount of electrical current to turn your engine over when you're starting the car. So one key aspect of all batteries is it's cold cranking amps. So I'll zoom in here. So cold cranking amps, that's the number of amperes electric current that this battery can deliver to turn the combustion engine motor over when you're starting the car. It's a very key important thing of your battery characteristics. You want to have a replacement battery that has enough power to drive the same amount of amperage as before. Another important characteristic of a battery when you're looking for a replacement is what's called the group number or the battery size, basically. Car batteries are driven into different groups, sizing groups. So you want to pay attention to this number. This number is almost always written on the front part or on the top of your battery, so you can easily get access to it and get a replacement battery of the same type in the same group, which is the same size. So in my case here, the size of the battery or the group is 24F. So I got a replacement battery that has the same size. A couple of characteristics that you want to be aware of: the cold cranking amps and the size of the battery. Something else you want to also consider is your reserve capacity. That's roughly the amount of time you can get out of a battery when your engine is not running. And that's basically an estimate number of in minutes of how long your battery would last if your engine is not starting and maybe you're stuck on the side of the road and you're trying to just run the electrical equipment in your vehicle off the battery. So this is just a notional number. It's not exact, and it degrades over time as your battery degrades. But in my case, the original manufacturer battery that came with this 2015 Toyota Sienna had 125 minutes of reserve capacity, give or take. I'm pretty sure now with all this corrosion and the age, I can probably barely get 5 minutes out of it. But that's exactly why I'm going to replace this. So a key safety thing you have to be aware of at all times when dealing with something like electric car batteries, you want to make sure that you never touch the positive and the negative terminals at the same time. That will definitely give you a 12-volt jolt because you will be basically closing that circuit between the positive and the negative. So always be aware of that. I'm going to use gloves just in case I accidentally touch both. These should be non-conductive, so I should at least have insulation on my hands. The other thing is you can definitely touch one side, but not the other. So I can touch the positive separately. This is ground. So if you touch both, that's when you get electrocuted. So be aware of that. In a minute here, we're going to unscrew these little nuts right here, these screws, to get the terminals, the conductors off the battery and clean them up. But like I said, if you touch one side or the other, no problem. But if you touch both, you will get electrocuted. Usually on batteries, you will have a cover like this, something like that, that identifies the positive terminal. If you don't, red is usually denotes the positive terminal. A black wire typically denotes the negative terminal of the battery. So be aware of these things, positive and negative. Don't touch both electrodes. Be careful. Now, every vehicle is going to be a little bit different. It's going to have the battery in a different location. Some will have them on the left side, some will be on the right. But in my case, for a 2015 Toyota Sienna, and pretty sure all Toyota Siennas The battery is very easily accessible. It's on the top, and in most of the Sienna models, it is held in place by a metal rod like this that basically holds the battery in its tray attached to the main frame of the vehicle via this. And there's a long screw right there, as you can see, that kind of pushes the rod, attaches the metal rod to this long screw and pushes down. It's screwed in right there, holds the battery in place so it doesn't move around or jolt around as the vehicle is moving. Okay, so some might be wondering, well, if you're going to get your battery replaced, you're going to have to buy it from somewhere, and most places are going to offer free installation. That is actually true. Most places will offer free installation. But if you're a do-it-all-yourself kind of person that you want to do it for fun, or if you got a good deal, you found a good deal on a car battery in a place that doesn't actually do installation, hopefully by the end of this video, you know exactly how to do it. Pretty simple. It's really a 10-minute project. It's going to take me about 25 or 30 just because I'm putting this video together and having some extra fun doing a project like this. So that's one of the reasons why you might end up having to do it yourself, because you can get a really good deal on a battery that fits your car battery characteristics, like what I was showing you, the amperage, the cold cranking amps, the size, etc. You might find a really good deal, but they don't do installation. And if you're in that boat like I am, then this video is for you. And hopefully by the end of this video, you can do the whole thing yourself without any problems. So now it's time to get to the real work. Before you disconnect your terminals from the battery, I would highly recommend you do two things to make this job a little bit easier. One, hold down your windows and unlock your vehicle. And the reason for that is, as soon as I disconnect that positive terminal, there'll be no power going to the electric equipment in your vehicle. So your remote is not going to work, and your windows will not roll down, and you're definitely not going to be able to turn the engine on. So keep that in mind. Do these things prior to continuing, such that once I disconnect this terminal, I still have easy access to open the vehicle and be able to get into it and do whatever I need to. So another very obvious sign your vehicle needs a new car battery is when you try to start the engine and it starts something like this. Did you see that initial stutter? That's exactly what happens when your battery isn't able to hold enough charge and it doesn't quite drive enough of that cold cranking amperage to turn your vehicle over. Over time, and I've had this happen, and I'm pretty sure if I try to start the engine a couple times, I'll have this happen again. But there won't be enough power to start the engine because the amperage isn't enough. So you'll hear this stutter of your starter ignition trying to get the engine started, but there's no enough power coming from the battery, so it doesn't start it over. Definitely don't want to get to that state. So a simple project like this should be pretty easy for you to do to get the car battery replaced, so you don't get stuck somewhere and have to get a jumper and get your car jumped. So this is probably specific to a Toyota Sienna, but you see how it keeps showing me a check charging system warning message. That's an indication that your electric system, primarily your car battery, isn't able to drive enough power for the electric devices in your vehicle. I don't have the engine on, but I do have the car on electrically. It's consuming power from the battery, and this error message is kind of like a hint we're probably not getting enough power out of your car battery. So this is one of those things that you will notice in your car if you have a low car battery power. Something else, in my case, I am trying to I have the sliding door open. I'm going to try to close it. As you can see, I am trying to close the sliding doors and they are not responsive. The reason for that is the same exact root cause. My battery is ready to get replaced. So I've shown you these things because if you start seeing some strange behavior in your vehicle, those are the kinds of things that will happen if your car battery is low. So you can't really open or close the sliding door. I'm going to try to start the engine one more time and see if it actually starts. I think I'm at the point where the battery is now completely dead. It is not driving enough power, not quite enough, nearly enough amperage to turn the engine over. This is what you'll get. So that's the sound of your engine start trying to turn over the engine, but it's not able to do that. So at this point, the battery is completely dead. I'm really glad I am replacing it tonight, so I don't have to use my car tomorrow morning and end up being stuck somewhere. Okay, so let's start the real work. The first thing I'm going to do is remove the connections to the terminals and clean up the corrosion. So let's get going. I'll go ahead and remove the positive terminal first. It is worth mentioning that in my case, Toyotas, they use most of the screws and the bolts are metric. So I do know that the screws on the terminals are 10 millimeters. So if you use a 10 millimeter socket like this, that should do the job to get the screws unscrewed. I got the positive unscrewed. I'll do the same thing to the negative terminal here. Okay, that should be good enough. Both nuts are unscrewed, so I should be able to get the electrodes off the battery terminals. You might use a flathead screwdriver like that just to kind of part the terminal a little bit. See how you can separate both sides and get it easy to disconnect here. And then same thing over here. This might be a little bit more challenging because there's quite a bit of corrosion. So I'm just going to pry the different ends of the connector right here, and then I can kind of wiggle it and get it disconnected. As I said earlier, you can touch one electrode and not have any issues. If you touch both, you create an electric circuit between positive and negative, and you will get electrocuted. So this one might be a little bit more challenging. I might have to go grab a small hammer and just kind of gently tap on it. Might be able to get it unlodged if I just tap on it. I use a big wrench here. Tap on it. So I'm going to use a flathead screwdriver and try to get this connector off. Now keep in mind, I'm trying to be very cognizant of not applying any extra force or putting any pressure on the battery itself. The last thing I want to have happen is have acid leaking out of an 8-year-old car battery. That would be a real disaster, and that would not be a good do-it-all yourself project at all. So I'm going to just keep kind of gently prying left and right until I get this thing loose. As you can see, I got quite a bit of corrosion on this positive terminal. The negative terminal was a piece of cake. It's actually loose. It's ready to get disconnected. But this positive one's definitely got quite a bit of corrosion. So as I start to get this electrode kind of undone and off, I'm going to go ahead and use a wire brush. You're going to definitely need a wire brush for a project like this if your battery has this much corrosion on its terminals. So use a wire brush here and you just kind of scrub some of this corrosion away, clean it up. And once I get this off, I'm going to use this wire brush some more to get it more cleaned up. So after cleaning up some of this corrosion, you could use a couple things. I had some anti-corrosive stuff that you can spray on it. Eats away, as you can see, it's a lot cleaner. Or something else that will do the job, but maybe not as chemically. You could use warm water and baking soda. That will also neutralize the corrosion that is around the terminal. So more cleaning, I was able to get it wiggled. Now that it's wiggling, I'm hopefully going to be able to pop this terminal off. Took me some while to kind of hammer on it while I get this corrosion kind of undone. Did that off camera. There we go. As you could see, let's zoom in here a little bit. There was corrosion on the inside of the connector right here. See that? So I still have quite a bit of cleaning to do. I'll use that wire brush. By the way, now is a good time to also completely remove the negative terminal. That one did not have nearly as much corrosion. Let me go ahead and remove that completely. And I'm going to simply just tuck that connector back in here. So it's kind of out of the picture. At this point, because I removed the negative terminal, even if I were to connect the positive terminal, I don't have a circuit going on. So there is absolutely no power from this battery to your car at this point, and that's okay. That's exactly what we want to do in order to move forward with this project. As you can see, the inside of this is quite corroded. So I am going to probably use some WD-40 and clean this out. I'll use this wire brush. I'm going to spray some WD-40 or any anti-corrosion removal stuff, really. straight into a rag and scrub. Also going to use a screwdriver to scrub the corrosion off the inside. As you can see, there's got a bit of corrosion in here. There's like a ring of corrosion on the inside. Now, it doesn't have to be pristine, but obviously want to get most of it out. You see that greenish, bluish crystals? That's all corrosion that has happened over the past however many years. Again, it's an 8-year-old battery, so this was expected. Supposedly, car batteries are supposed to have between 3 and 5 years of lifespan. So maybe around the 5-year mark, that's when you really want to start looking at replacing a battery. I got lucky because I got 8 years out of mine, so I feel pretty good about it. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I'm gonna wipe it down a little bit more. Next, I'm gonna go ahead and completely remove the old battery and start putting in a new one. So I want to show you, for those Toyota Sienna owners, I want to show you guys how the batteries are actually attached and kept in place. Okay, so in Toyota Sienna models, I know 2011 and after that, I'm pretty sure the ones that are 2002 and beyond, the car battery is held in place by this metal rod. This metal rod is attached on one side to the chassis, the car's metal structure, and on the other side, this long screw right here, you can kind of see a part of it right there, that pushes the battery in place and keeps it in place on the tray. So what we're gonna do is start out by unscrewing this side right here. Not completely, I'm just gonna loosen the screw. So that should be loose. And then I'm gonna loosen this side here. I'm gonna use this adjustable wrench. It should do the trick. So on this side, I'll do the same thing. So unscrew this bolt right here. Not all the way, because there's a nut at the bottom and we don't want this to fall. Then notice that there is a rod right there and then a nut that sits on top of it. At the bottom, it looks like this, as you can see. You see that? It simply hooks up to the bottom of the tray that holds battery in place. Once you have it unhooked, you can pull it just like that. So at this point, we are ready to move this metal rod that holds the battery in place. It will unloose just like that. Okay, so here's the metal rod. As you can see, it's got two tabs, metal tabs attached to the rod to hold the battery from the front and the back, so the battery doesn't move front forward, and then it doesn't move sideways because it's kind of held in place. You can see there's marks on the battery itself. So what I'm going to do is simply, all you got to do is pull this out. See, just a little hook like that. Then I'm going to move this metal rod kind of out of place, out of the way, enough just to get this battery pulled out, basically. So I'm going to screw this bolt right here at the bottom a little bit more. My goal is to not completely unscrew it. I just want to move it out of the way enough to enable me to get the battery pulled out. My preference is not to take that rod completely out, as I don't want to have to deal and wrestle with the nut at the bottom being completely undone. There we go. So that's exactly what I wanted to do. Now the battery should be completely loose. I should be able to easily pull it out. I'm glad I have my gloves on, so I really don't want to have any of that corrosion fall all over the place. So this battery is now loose. I'm gonna reach in, be roughly the same size as the new one. And there we go. Obviously check if it has any leaks or anything. In my case, I didn't see any evidence of leaks. That's how you pull the old battery out. So now is a perfect opportunity to clean this battery tray at the bottom a little bit. So I'm going to use the same wire brush to kind of see what I got here. Probably use a regular brush or a rag. I don't need to use anything abrasive. So I'm just going to go ahead and dust it off. Let that fall. Floor, no problem. Looks like the entire tray can actually get pulled out like that. And as you can see, that's part of that metal plate right there is part of the chassis. So I'm gonna take this and simply dump it in the trash. See, the bottom of this battery plastic plate has these little circular knobs that will sit on these holes right here to keep it in place. So just kind of line them up. I just quickly cleaned it, line them back up. I'm also going to take the opportunity to disconnect the positive terminal. See that bolt on the top? I'm gonna unscrew that. Different cars will have different models, but a lot of times they'll have like a main connector, right? Like that, main terminal, and then another sub terminal that attaches to the top. So with this disconnected, I kind of want to show you what it looks like on the other side. As you can see, I got a ton of corrosion, lots of blue. So I'm going to go ahead and scrub quite a bit of that here. Make sure that's as clean as possible. You see on the inside right there, a lot of this, all this blue stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and clean all that out here and get it ready to reinstall. I'm using this screwdriver to kind of get rid of all this corrosion. Quite a bit on the bottom actually, which is the side facing the battery itself. As you can see, I'm just kind of poking a ton of this stuff out. So I'm gonna actually go spray some WD-40 on it and wipe it down quite a bit. This wire brush does a really good job coupled with WD-40. Gonna remove a lot of the stuff. So I kind of want to have this connector, basically this terminal, sit in WD-40 to get a lot of this stuff out. So it doesn't have to be perfect or pristine. Ultimately, my goal is to make sure that these copper sections are as clean as possible so they can have good conduction to get power out of the battery. Unlike the old battery, which was pretty corroded and corrosion on the terminal itself. Any good cleanup like that should have a lot better results with the new battery than the old one. Okay, so I'm going to set this in WD-40. I'll soak it up quite a bit here. And then I will just let it sit. And then I'll come give it a good wipe after that. While I put the new battery in, this should be good to stay here for a while. And then I'll come give it a good clean and then reattach the positive side of the connector. Okay, with the positive connector getting cleaned up, the battery tray cleaned up, I'm ready to put in the new battery. So I know the new battery is exactly the same size as the previous battery. They are both group 24F. So I'm going to go ahead and simply drop the new battery in the spot of the old one. Just one hand bottom, one hand at the top. Just simply lower it in place. Some batteries have like a lifting, like a handle, which would be nice, but I happen to get a good deal on one that doesn't have, but that's okay. Got it in place. I still have a little bit of wiggle room left and right. Now notice the positive terminal, it's got a cover on it, so that's good. That way I don't accidentally connect to something or short it, but trying to make sure that the terminals, the connectors are within range. Looks like they are. I think I'm in good shape there. I'm going to go ahead and move the metal lever that holds it in place. Here it is. That looks pretty good. It is the same exact size. So the first thing I'm going to do is simply get things lined up, then start connecting and tying down. I got to run this small rod that pushes things in place. You know, this might be the trickiest part of this project, but back here, you see this, that it kind of hooks up to the bottom just like that. And then you tighten it down. I'm at a good spot right now to hook it up, tighten it down. All right, so I want to make sure it's clear what we're doing with this long rod right here. It basically, this hook at the bottom, you see this hook at the bottom right here? It hooks up to the bottom of the tray, battery tray, and then you simply tighten the nut at the top and it tightens down this whole thing. So in order to be able to tighten this fairly easily, we need a socket that's longer, just like this. So I happen to have an 11 millimeter, which is close enough. I can basically get a socket wrench and tighten it down that way while holding that rod in place so it doesn't keep twisting as I do. So it's a little bit of a tight fit, but I'm gonna simply use one hand to keep that rod, to hook the bottom part of the rod in place while I tighten from up here. This rod is really tricky and it's got to get done right, but as you can see, the bottom of this, here's the hook, hooks up to this metal piece. The challenge is to hold the rod in place while screwing only the nut. If you screw the nut, it'll move the rod and the hook will not be in place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a pair of pliers like this, hold the tip of that rod, and then use a small sized wrench, the same size as the nut, and try to screw the nut in place while the rod stays static. So at the bottom right there, once I got that hook in place, I was able to tighten it without the rod actually moving. So it took a few rounds, but the trick is get that hook hooked up at the bottom and then start screwing. We're right on track here. So next, I'll tighten this bolt. At this point, I'm ready to tighten all the way because the other side is halfway tightened. So, okay. So the front bolt is tightened into the chassis. I'm going to keep tightening over here. Notice how the rod is not moving because that hook at the bottom is actually in place, and it is against a metal piece of that metal plate, so it's not actually turning as I turn the nut. That's exactly what I wanted to do earlier. So I got that and hooked up, then it became a lot easier to do. So I don't want to over tighten. Remember, we're just pushing down on this battery, making sure that it's in place. If I do over tighten, I'm going to end up basically shoving this metal piece into the battery, and I don't want to do that. So at this point, as you can see, it is pretty close. It is holding this in place. I know this battery is not going anywhere. So I'm now ready to start attaching the terminals. So I'm going to start with the negative here, tighten this, and then I'll go back and check on the positive terminal that had corrosion. It's been sitting in WD-40 basically to get cleaned up. So I'm going to go do that. Next, I'm going to go ahead and tighten this bolt and make sure that my negative terminal is fully attached. Line up the terminal. Again, 10 millimeter in my case. I don't want to over tighten. All we're doing here is making sure that there's good solid contact between the negative terminal of the battery and the conducting rod of the negative terminal of the electric circuit. So that's now in place. So back to the positive terminal conductor that was really corroded. I had this sitting in WD-40 to get it all as cleaned up as possible. It looks pretty good. I'll give it one more spray here and then do one final wipe down before we attach it back, or the positive terminal of the new battery. As you can see, you can start to see the copper right here starting to show up. That was completely covered with corrosion. Now it is showing, it's cleaned up. It doesn't have to be 100% perfect. With this new battery, I'm not expecting any additional corrosion to be created. And we have enough conducting surfaces here in the copper, so I'm not terribly worried about having some corrosion. Some might think, you know what, well, maybe now's a good time to go get a different part and attach it. And that's fine. If you want to go get order a part and attach a new positive terminal of a Toyota Sienna, you can totally do that. That is perfectly fine. At some point in the next year or so after installing this battery, I'll assess that positive terminal and see where it's at. And I might actually replace it in the future. But at this point, I believe I have enough conducting surfaces in the positive terminal, so I won't actually change it at this point. I will just use it after cleaning. So I think it's in pretty good shape. I'm gonna go ahead and bring it back and install it and get this project close to getting wrapped up. Here's the positive terminal after cleaning it up. As you can see, a lot cleaner, not pristine, not brand new, but a lot cleaner. This will work. I'm gonna go ahead and attach it back to the other sub terminal I'll tighten this here in a minute. But at this point, I'm ready to attach the positive terminal to batteries. Notice the battery has a plastic cover, so I'm going to go ahead and remove this plastic cover. Most new batteries will come with a cover like this, so just like that. And as soon as I attach this positive terminal, this battery should start providing electric power to the car. So I'll start hearing things here in a minute on the car, on the inside of the car going off. You might get a spark, but I'm not terribly worried about that. I do have gloves on, so go ahead and do this. As you can see, just a small spark. Don't panic, that is expected. And then I'll just push it in place and start tightening. Push down. It's a lot easier to attach this positive terminal with a brand new battery after it's been cleaned up. After having gone through what I did just to get it cleaned up and off, this is a breeze. But make sure you push the terminal all the way down and put it in place as you start to get those last few rounds of tightening that nut. Like that will kind of constrict the copper on the positive terminal. As you can see, looks pretty snug right now. It's getting pretty tight, so don't need to over tighten. Just make sure that it's tight enough that it continues to conduct. At this point, I've got this battery all connected, positive and negative. I should be able to start checking out the electric devices inside the car. So back inside the vehicle, as you can see, I can see lights. That's a good sign. It tells me that at least there's enough power in this new battery to turn the basic electric system of the car. I'm gonna go ahead and attempt to start my engine. Let's see how this goes. Beautiful. This is the smoothest engine start I've had in this vehicle in the last maybe 3 months or so. I'll try this again just for good measure. Lovely. So I think we got this done. Next, we'll start to tidy things up and close this project down. So I know this new battery is functional. I was able to start the engine twice. I think everything is connected. We're in pretty good shape. The last thing I'm going to do, just give a tug on the terminals. Make sure that there's no motion. I do have to tighten this bolt down, so I'm glad I did that. With this nut tightened down, everything is pretty much all set. Give it another tug. You can see everything is connected. Nothing is moving. So I'm going to go ahead and put the positive terminal cover and plug on the rod. Everything is in place. And that's it. That's how you can replace your old car battery and get things connected. It's as simple as that. So another thing that's highly recommended that you do when you're replacing a battery or just as part of your general maintenance of your vehicle is to get one of those battery terminal protection sprays and spray the positive terminal. Give it a good shake and simply spray slowly. Let it soak for a minute. And give it another spray. What this stuff is going to do is it'll reduce the amount of corrosion and prevent the corrosion from happening too fast. You don't have to soak it or keep spraying very much. A little bit of that, this solution goes a long way. So just a quick spray like that, let it sit for a minute. Let the solution kind of get in between the battery terminal and the connector, and that should really help reduce the corrosion over time and allow your battery to last longer. So I did that to the positive terminal. I'll also do it to the negative terminal. It is worth noting that corrosion on the negative terminal usually does not happen as much. But since I got it, go ahead and do the same thing on the negative terminal. And this is not something that you do only when you replace your battery. You do that as part of your regular maintenance. Keep checking on the battery terminals every 3 to 6 months or so. If you see corrosion, go ahead and clean that off and spray some of this solution. I'll leave a link below for a bottle of this in case you're interested. Doing that on a regular basis definitely helps prolong your car battery life. So something else to consider, because this is a new battery that I just installed, I could have just set it up, covered the positive terminal and be done. But one thing I do expect to do in the next 48 hours, I expect to actually be driving my car quite a bit and I will be out of town. So to make sure that I have a good full batteries worth of power that can actually last through this trip, avoid any risks. What I'm going to do is I have a battery charger, so I'm actually going to go ahead and charge this battery overnight. It's not something you have to do, but it's something that I am going to do just to make sure I don't have any issues with it being new and just never fully charged or half charged. To do that, I'll go ahead and plug in positive terminal, negative terminal. This is exactly like jump in a car. I'll leave a link below for one of those devices that can charge your batteries. It can do car batteries or other batteries as well. Once you hook it up, you can hear it click and it'll start charging. So I'm going to leave this charging overnight. There's a bad battery indicator in a lot of these devices. I was getting a bad battery indication quite a few times when I was charging the old battery, but with this new battery, I definitely don't expect that. I'm not getting it right now. So I'll leave this charging overnight, and in the morning, I expect it to be fully charged, ready to go. Glad I got this project done. So as you just saw, replacing a car battery is actually a pretty simple, straightforward project. Even in my case, with all the corrosion that I had on the positive terminal, which took me quite a little bit of time. It took me about 20 minutes to clean up and get that positive terminal disconnected. But even with something with that level of complexity, it's really not a big project at all. So you should be able to do it. And hopefully this video helped you. If it did, please give it a like and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching.